The studio lights dimmed just enough to reveal the silhouette of the world's most iconic tech visionary as he took his seat. Elon Musk, dressed in his usual all-black, gave a slight nod to the camera before glancing to his right, where the real attention of the evening now sat. Perched on the edge of a giant red chair, feet dangling far from the ground, was his 6-year-old son, known to the world by his cryptic name, Æ A-Xii. But to his family and tonight's captivated audience, he was simply X. The host, a smooth-talking celebrity journalist named Trevor Lang, leaned in with a grin that had disarmed presidents. "X," he said, "you've been called a genius, a prodigy, even the youngest person to solve a theoretical physics problem in under 10 minutes. But tonight, let's get to know you, not your brain. Just one question to start off. Who do you look up to the most?" The room was silent, except for the faint hum of stage monitors and cameras whirring into focus. Elon adjusted slightly in his seat, probably expecting his son to say something like "my dad" or Nikola Tesla, or maybe even Iron Man if he was feeling playful. But X didn't blink. He looked straight into the camera lens, eyes wide with that eerie, calm intelligence that both fascinated and unsettled people. Then he said, clearly and softly, "Jesus, he's my best friend." A full beat passed. Maybe 2. Trevor's signature smile twitched ever so slightly. Elon's head tilted like a robot processing an unexpected line of code. A murmur rippled across the live audience as the sound team hesitated, unsure if they'd misheard. Jesus," Trevor finally managed, his voice cracking like an off-note piano key. X nodded, swinging his feet gently beneath the chair. "Yeah, he talks to me at night. He says I don't have to be famous to be loved." Dead silence. Billions of people were watching. The broadcast was live across North America, Europe, even Asia. Twitter lit up like a wildfire. Did Elon Musk's son just say Jesus talks to him? Reddit threads exploded. Hashtags were born before the commercial break. Elon said nothing, his hands folded in front of him, thumbs pressing hard into one another. His face gave nothing away except perhaps a flicker of confusion. Not anger, not disappointment, but something new, a father realizing his son might be walking a path no algorithm could predict. Trevor recovered like a pro. "That's beautiful," he said with a shaky laugh. "Well, I think we're all going to need a second to process that one." The producers cut to commercial, but by then it didn't matter. The moment had already gone viral. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward even when things get tough? X had never known a normal moment in his life. Cameras had been pointed at him before he could walk. Reporters speculated on his first words before he could even form sounds. His baby photos weren't tucked into some dusty family album. They were front-page headlines. From the outside, his world looked like a dream. Smart walls that spoke, robot nannies with British accents, holographic bedtime stories. His nursery had once been a prototype for a Mars pod. His crib was custom designed by Tesla engineers. And yet, X often found himself watching the clouds outside his window more than the screens on the wall. He was born in a storm, not metaphorically, literally. The night he arrived, a freak lightning strike knocked out power across parts of Los Angeles. The hospital ran on backup for nearly 10 hours. Elon later joked in interviews that his son came into the world with more voltage than any battery we've ever made. But for all the sparks and headlines, X was different. He wasn't just smart, he was deeply aware. By the time he was 3, he had already asked his mother, "Grimes, why do people smile when they're sad? And where does love go when someone dies?" He didn't laugh at cartoons, he didn't like loud sounds, but he loved birds and clouds and the way the sunlight made patterns on the kitchen floor in the mornings. Grimes tried to give him normalcy, as much as she could. They'd have picnics on the Tesla factory rooftop. She'd play him acoustic lullabies while the world outside buzzed with electric hype. But even she admitted once in an interview, he's got this old soul. Like he's seen the end of something, and now he's just quietly watching it all begin again. Elon, on the other hand, never quite knew what to make of him. He admired the boy's intellect, of course he did, but connection, that was harder. Elon would bring X down to SpaceX meetings, try to engage him with rocket models and simulation screens. But X never seemed interested in what they could build, only in why. Why are we trying to leave Earth? X had once asked in front of an entire boardroom. To survive, Elon replied without hesitation. But if we don't know how to love each other here, the boy said, won't we just break there too? The room went silent. And Elon, usually so quick with comebacks, simply stared at his son like he'd just been spoken to in a language he didn't know existed. At night, X would sit by his window, knees tucked under his chin, staring up at the stars. The house was quiet, wrapped in a kind of digital stillness, but in his small voice just above a whisper, he'd speak to someone invisible to everyone else. "Thank you for staying with me today," he'd say. "I know Dad's trying." He never told anyone who he was talking to. Not until the live show, and now the world knew, or thought they knew. The headlines the next morning were as loud as the silence in that studio had been. Musk's son says Jesus talks to him. Messiah of Silicon Valley. Faith or fantasy? Elon sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through endless commentary, debates, reactions, mockery, praise, panic. The AI assistant offered him black coffee. He didn't drink it. X, meanwhile, sat on the floor, drawing with crayons. He was sketching. A man in white robes standing under a tree smiling at a small boy. "Who's that?" Elon asked quietly, his voice unusually soft. X looked up, eyes bright. "That's me." "And him?" Elon nodded slowly, then returned to his screen, but his hands didn't move. The comments blurred. All he could think about was that stillness. In the studio, the kind no technology could recreate. It was a silence that lived. And for the first time in a long time, Elon Musk didn't feel in control. That night, X didn't sleep. At least, not in the way most children did. Instead of drifting off into the quiet of slumber, his mind wandered to places most people wouldn't even know how to find. He lay still, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling of his room, lit only by the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the windows. The dreams had come again. It wasn't like the dreams of other children, those filled with talking animals or magic kingdoms. No, these were different, these were vivid, real, and they felt eternal. In one of these dreams, X was walking through a vast field, the grass tall and waving in the breeze. But it wasn't just any field, it was golden, glowing with a light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. In the distance he could see a figure standing, a tall man with flowing robes, his face glowing with a warmth that made the air around him shimmer. X knew this man. In the dream he had no name for him, but the man knew him, and the way he looked at X made him feel like he had been waiting for him for a long time. "Are you God?" X had asked, his voice small but steady. The man smiled, a smile so kind, it made X feel like all the worries of the world had disappeared. "No, child," the man had replied softly, "but I know him, and I know you." X woke up suddenly, his heart racing, his head full of images he couldn't quite understand. He had learned from an early age to trust his feelings, his instincts. This dream, though, felt different from all the others. It wasn't just a dream. It was a message. He got out of bed and walked silently to the living room, his tiny feet padding across the marble floors. The house was quiet, too quiet. Elon was still working in his office, as usual, surrounded by screens and half-empty coffee cups. But Grimes was asleep, her soft breathing coming from the bedroom. X sat in front of the fireplace, pulling a blanket around his shoulders. The flames crackled gently, casting long shadows across the walls. "Why do you keep coming to me?" X whispered into the empty room, as if he expected an answer from the fire itself. "What do you want me to do?" No answer came, at least not the kind he expected. But just before his eyelids fluttered shut again, he heard a faint whisper, like a soft breeze. "Tell them." About the light. The next day it all came rushing back when X stood before the mirror, combing his hair. He saw his own reflection, but there was something different in his eyes. They were more knowing, more certain. It was as though he had seen something that had unlocked a door inside him, something bigger than his father's rockets or his mother's music. X, Elon called from the hallway, snapping him out of his trance. Time for breakfast. X didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to his drawing board and picked up a crayon. He began to sketch furiously, a picture of a man with flowing robes standing in a field of light, just like in the dream. But this time the man wasn't alone. There was a small child at his side holding his hand. It wasn't just any man. It was Jesus, and the child was him. The more X drew, the more a strange sense of calm washed over him. He didn't understand why he felt this way. He didn't know why these dreams kept coming, why he felt this deep, unexplainable connection. But there was one thing he was sure of. He had to share it. He had to make people see what he was seeing. He showed the picture to Grimes when she woke up. She smiled gently, but there was a tinge of sadness in her eyes. "This is beautiful, X," she said softly. "But who is this man? Is it someone you've met in your dreams?" X nodded, biting his lip. He's not just a man. He's the one who told me to tell them about the light." Grimes blinked, processing his words. She had never quite known how to handle her son's profound moments, those flashes of wisdom and insight that often felt more like fragments of something much bigger. But there was no denying the sincerity in X's voice, the certainty behind his words. "Tell them about the light?" she echoed, her voice trembling slightly. "X, what do you mean? Who are you talking about?" X didn't answer immediately. He just looked at his drawing again. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but he felt something stirring deep within him. Something told him that the time to speak, really speak, was drawing near. Meanwhile, across town, Elon was still trying to make sense of his son's public declaration on TV. The world was in an uproar. People from all corners of society had taken to social media, discussing X's words. Some mocked him, others praised him, but Elon wasn't sure where he stood. He believed in technology, in science, in the power of the human mind. But his son? His son seemed to believe in something much older than all of that. "Jesus talks to me," X had said. What was a father supposed to do with that? The fallout from X's unexpected words on live television spread faster than wildfire. Social media erupted, with millions of people posting, commenting, and debating. Headlines screamed from every corner of the internet. Some claimed it was a hoax, a staged moment to boost the Musk brand. Others, more skeptical, dismissed it as another eccentricity of the world's richest man's genius offspring. But there were also those who saw something different, a glimmer of something profound in the words of a 6-year-old boy. "Elon Musk's son says Jesus talks to him," one headline read. What does it mean for the future of faith and technology? Another article suggested that X's declaration was part of a new trend where children see beyond the veil of reality, perceiving spiritual truths in a way adults had long forgotten. But it wasn't just the media that had a field day with X's words. Religious leaders from all over the world started weighing in. A Catholic priest in New York tweeted, "Could this be the new Messiah, the child prodigy we've been waiting for?" A famous evangelical pastor in Texas posted a video declaring that the world had been given a sign from God. The Vatican, however, was quiet, too quiet. People began to wonder why the church hadn't issued a statement. On the other side, critics were just as vocal. Scientists, technology pundits, and even Musk's closest friends raised eyebrows. Some questioned if Elon had even been aware of his son's statement beforehand. Was this just another one of those bizarre moments of childlike innocence that, when seen through the lens of social media, took on a life of its own? Others wondered if Elon was pushing an agenda, turning his son into a symbol of something more profound than even he realized. The next day, after the media frenzy died down a little, Elon sat in his office, rubbing his temples. His phone rang. Constantly, calls from investors, friends, even political figures. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was going on? Elon had become used to the spotlight, but this was different. This wasn't about electric cars or sending humans to Mars. This wasn't even about making a groundbreaking technological breakthrough. This was about something that seemed bigger, more spiritual, and as much as Elon prided himself on his scientific mindset, he couldn't deny the nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach that told him this moment was significant, perhaps more so than anything he had ever done before. Grimes came into the room, her face pale from lack of sleep. She had been reading through the endless comments online, and it was starting to get to her. "I'm getting worried, Elon," she said quietly, sitting down on the edge of his desk. "People are starting to take X's words too seriously. What if they think he's a prophet?" Elon leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen in front of him. His hands were still, betraying his usual restlessness. "I don't know what to think anymore. X has always been different. But this is—" He trailed off, unsure of what to say. "You're not worried?" Grimes pressed, her voice trembling. "I mean, the world is obsessed with what he said. And you saw how he was last night. It's like he's living in a world we can't even understand." Elon's gaze softened. "I'm not worried. I'm confused. But X is still just a kid. He says things that don't always make sense, but maybe that's the point. Maybe he's seeing something the rest of us can't see." Grimes shook her head. "But what if he's not? What if he's saying something that is real? I mean, what if he does have a message to share with the world?" Elon's eyes widened slightly. "You think he might?" "I don't know," Grimes admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't shake this feeling. I can't ignore how calm he is about it. It's like he knows something we don't." Elon stood up, running a hand through his hair. He walked over to the window and looked out at the sprawling city below, the traffic buzzing like an endless stream of ants. The world was chaotic, ever-changing, always moving. But X, his son, seemed to exist outside of all that, unaffected by the noise of the world. "What do we do now?" Grimes asked softly, joining him at the window. "How do we handle this?" Elon didn't answer right away. He didn't know the answer. For the first time in his life, he didn't have a clear path forward. But there was one thing he did know. His son's words couldn't be ignored. They had captured the world's attention, and no amount of science or technology could undo that. X's words had struck a chord with something deep inside people, a yearning for meaning, for purpose, for connection. Whether it was divine or not, the impact was undeniable. And Elon Musk, the man who had built rockets and electric cars, was about to find himself standing at the crossroads of something far more powerful than technology. He was about to learn just how much one child's belief could shake the foundations of the world. The next few days were a blur. The media circus surrounding X's statement didn't let up. News outlets, social media influencers, bloggers, and late-night talk show hosts all dissected every word, every gesture, every tiny moment when X had spoken about his experiences. Some took a cynical approach, while others were drawn to his innocence, to his quiet certainty. But the questions kept growing louder. What did he mean? Why did he say it? In the midst of this storm, Elon couldn't help but notice one thing. X seemed completely unaffected. The boy continued with his routine as though nothing had changed. He ate his breakfast, played with his toys, and scribbled on pieces of paper. And while the media outside was going wild, X was in his own world. A world that seemed more profound and enigmatic than anyone could understand. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, X asked his father if they could go outside. "Why do you want to go outside, buddy?" Elon asked, glancing up from his work. The desk in front of him was covered with sketches for new projects, all things related to SpaceX or Tesla. But for some reason, X's quiet request caught him off guard. "I want to talk to him," X replied. "Simply." "To who?" Elon asked, raising an eyebrow. X didn't respond right away. He simply stood up and walked toward the door, his little feet making soft, padding sounds as he moved. Elon watched him, a mixture of curiosity and concern settling in his chest. There was something about the boy's confidence, an almost haunting certainty, that made him wonder if X truly knew something the rest of the world didn't. Elon followed him outside, his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't quite organize. They walked to the edge of the property, where the trees met the open field. The night air was crisp and the sky above them was clear, scattered with stars. It was a peaceful moment, but there was a palpable tension in the air, like something was waiting to unfold. X stood there, his small face tilted upward, his hands clasped behind his back, his posture that of a child who had learned something far beyond his years. He seemed to be looking at something invisible in the sky, a gaze so focused, so intense, that it made Elon feel almost as though he were intruding on a moment that wasn't meant for him. "Elon," X finally said, his voice soft but full of something Elon couldn't quite define. "Do you know what the light is?" Elon blinked, his thoughts interrupted. "The light?" he repeated, trying to understand. "What do you mean, X?" X didn't answer immediately. He looked back up, at the stars, his little hand pointing toward the heavens. "It's the thing that helps people see. It's not just in the sky, it's inside." "It's in here," he said, placing a tiny hand over his heart. For a moment, Elon just stood there, watching his son, his mind spinning with questions. He had never been religious. His belief had always been grounded in science, logic, and reason. But X's words, coming from the pure innocence of a child, made him wonder, could there be something more, something deeper? "I don't understand," Elon admitted quietly. "What do you mean? Why do you keep saying these things?" X turned to him, his eyes wide and full of something Elon couldn't place. "You can't understand it with your head, Dad. You have to feel it with your heart, like the way you feel when you're helping someone, or when you see someone smile. And it makes you happy, even though you didn't do anything. That's the light." Elon swallowed hard. He was accustomed to numbers, equations, and facts, things that could be measured. This, though, was beyond him. And yet somehow it felt like it was the one thing he couldn't ignore. He knelt down to X's level, looking him straight in the eye. "X," he began slowly. "Why are you telling me this?" X shrugged, his expression serene, unbothered by the magnitude of the question. "Because you're my dad, and you need to know, you need to see it too." The words hit Elon harder than any breakthrough at SpaceX or any victory in business. It was a quiet truth, spoken with the certainty only a child could have. He didn't know what to do with it, or if he even could do anything with it, but X's words had shaken something in him, and a part of him deep down knew that he couldn't go back to thinking the way he had before. "I'm not sure I can see it the way you do," Elon said softly, almost apologetically. X smiled, up at him, the kind of smile that made everything feel lighter, like the world wasn't as complicated as it seemed. "That's okay, but you will. One day you'll see it, just like I do." As they stood there, in the silence of the night, the world seemed to pause. Elon Musk, the man who had reached the stars, the man who had conquered Mars in his own mind, was standing on Earth, looking at his son, and wondering if there was something far more important than all the things he had ever built. Elon didn't have the answers, but one thing was clear: X wasn't just a child with an imagination. He was something more, something that for now defied explanation, and whatever X was going to say next, it wasn't going to be something the world could just ignore. The days after X's revelation grew increasingly strange. As Elon wrestled with his own thoughts about what his son was saying, the media coverage only intensified. People everywhere wanted to know more. They wanted answers. They wanted to understand what X had experienced and how his young mind had come to such profound conclusions. It wasn't just the general public that was fascinated. Religious leaders, scholars, and spiritual figures reached out to Elon, asking to meet with him and his son. Some believed that X was a prophet, a modern-day messenger with a direct line to the divine. Others were more cautious, urging that this moment be carefully considered before jumping to conclusions. But one thing was clear: the world was listening. Elon found himself at a crossroads. His work had always been driven by innovation, by pushing boundaries, by proving the impossible was possible. But now, in the face of his son's mysterious experiences, he wasn't sure what direction to take. He couldn't deny the power of X's words. They resonated with something inside him, something deep, a sense of longing that even the success of SpaceX or Tesla hadn't fulfilled. But still, his logical mind struggled with the idea of something so intangible, so spiritual. Late. One evening, as Elon sat in his office trying to sort through a mountain of work, his phone buzzed. It was a message from a well-known Christian televangelist named Pastor Michael. The message was simple, but it hit Elon like a bolt of lightning. "We would like to invite X to appear on our program. We believe he has a message that the world needs to hear. Will you join us?" Elon stared at the phone screen for what felt like an eternity. Pastor Michael had a massive following, one of the largest in the country, and his televised sermons reached millions every week. The idea of putting X in front of such an audience was daunting. Would he be ready for that? Would he even want to do it? But X had shown no fear in his words before, and perhaps, just perhaps, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for, to share what he truly believed with the world. Elon glanced over at the empty chair across from him, where X had been sitting just days before. The boy was asleep now, probably dreaming about the same things he had shared with his father under the stars. But that wasn't the only thing Elon noticed. There was a stillness about him, a kind of peace that Elon couldn't quite explain. It was as if X was meant to do this, as if this moment was preordained. The invitation wasn't just about TV ratings or fame. It felt like something bigger than that. The message X had been talking about, the light, it was something people needed to hear, something they were hungry for. Elon wasn't sure if the world was ready for it, but he knew one thing: his son was more than ready. The next morning he sat down with X and Grimes over breakfast. The tension in the room was palpable, each person knowing the weight of the decision they were about to make. "Elon, do you really think he's ready for this?" Grimes asked quietly, stirring her coffee. "What if it changes everything? What if people start looking at us differently?" Elon took a deep breath. "Grimes, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I do know this. X has something that the world needs to hear. Whether they're ready or not, I think it's time." X looked up from his cereal, his wide eyes meeting his father's. "I want to do it," he said, his voice calm and certain. "I want to share the light." Elon froze, taken aback by how simple the answer was. His son, who had once been a curious child fascinated by rockets and space, was now a little boy who spoke of light, of faith, of something beyond what Elon had ever considered. "But, X," Elon began carefully, "this isn't like talking about rockets or cars. People might not understand, people might not believe you. Are you sure?" X nodded solemnly. "I'm sure, Dad. I have to do this." Grimes watched her son for a long moment before speaking. "If you're sure, then we'll support you. But remember, the world might not be as kind as we hope." Elon gave Grimes a look of reassurance. "We'll be there for him, every step of the way." It was settled. They would go. The following week, they made their way to the television studio where Pastor Michael's show was filmed. The set was large, well-lit, and filled with cameras, stagehands, and producers. Elon could feel the buzz in the air as they walked in. There was an energy that couldn't be ignored, a sense that something monumental was about to happen. X, despite his small stature, walked confidently beside his father. It was as if the weight of the world didn't bother him. He didn't look out of place. He looked as though he belonged there, like he was meant to stand on that stage and speak his truth. When they were seated in front of the cameras, the audience grew quiet. Pastor Michael, a tall man with a booming voice, walked over to greet them. He gave Elon a firm handshake before turning to X. "Hello, X," he said warmly. "I've heard so much about you. Are you ready to share your message with the world?" X smiled up at him. "Yes, I'm ready. I want to tell everyone about the light, about Jesus." Pastor Michael's eyes twinkled with approval, as if he already knew what X was about to say would be powerful. The cameras rolled, and the lights brightened. Elon's heart raced as he watched his son, who was no longer the curious child he had raised, but a little boy, who now carried the weight of a message that could change everything. The audience fell into an expectant hush as Pastor Michael turned to X, his expression a mix of admiration and curiosity. The stage was set for something monumental. The cameras were focused, capturing every slight movement, every glance. Elon, sitting beside his son, couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility. What if this moment changed everything? What if X's words caused a ripple? Effect that neither of them could control? The lights above flickered for a brief second before the host spoke, his voice booming through the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly blessed today to have with us a young boy who, in a time of confusion and doubt, has shared something with his father, something that could change the course of history. Pastor Michael's voice was warm, inviting as he turned to X, who was still smiling up at him with an innocent serenity that was hard to ignore. X, tell us, what is this message you've been sharing with your dad? What do you want to say? To the world? X didn't hesitate. His tiny hands were clasped in his lap and he gazed out at the audience, as though he was seeing something beyond them, beyond the studio. His voice, soft but steady, filled the space. Jesus is real, he began, his words echoing in the silence. He is with us, even when we don't see him. He talks to me sometimes, and he told me to share his light with the world. The light is the love that Jesus gives us, and we have to share it. It's in all of us, but we have to choose to see it. The audience sat motionless for a moment, taking in his words. Elon could hear the soft gasps from the viewers behind the cameras, as well as the rustle of some of the crew members who hadn't expected this level of simplicity, and yet profound depth. Pastor Michael's expression softened as he leaned forward. That's beautiful, X. Can you tell us more? What does it mean when you say Jesus talks to you? X nodded, his face unburdened by doubt. Jesus doesn't talk to me like a person talking to another person. It's more like a feeling inside me, and it makes me feel warm, like I'm never alone. He helps me understand the good things in the world, like when people are kind to each other. He tells me that we should love one another no matter what happens. The words were simple, so simple, in fact, that they struck at something deep inside the people watching. Elon was taken aback by how unpretentious his son was about it, how casually he described something that, to most people, seemed so far beyond ordinary comprehension. Was this the same child who could recite facts about rockets and electric cars with astonishing accuracy? And yet here he was, speaking about love and light with the certainty of someone who had always known it. Pastor. Michael leaned back, his expression a mixture of awe and humility. It sounds like you have a special connection with Jesus, X. Some might call that a gift. Do you believe that? X nodded again, his small voice unwavering. I think it's a gift for everyone, but they have to believe like I do. When they believe in the light, they can feel it too. They'll know that Jesus is always there. Elon, sitting beside his son, felt a lump rise in his throat. There was a strange combination of pride and bewilderment in his chest. He had always been a man of science, and yet now his son's words had brought him to the edge of something else, something intangible but real. Was X really hearing something from Jesus? Could a child possess such wisdom, such clarity? And, if so, what did that mean for him? What did it mean for the world? The audience was silent for a few moments as X's words hung in the air. It wasn't just what he had said, it was how he had said it. There was no pretense, no attempt to convince anyone. He simply knew it to be true, and in that moment, his truth felt like it might be something the world needed. Pastor Michael took a deep breath and turned to the audience, his voice full of emotion. What we've heard here today is not something that can be easily dismissed. The simplicity, the purity, the love that X speaks of, this is what the world needs. This is the message we all need to hear. The camera zoomed in on X, capturing his innocent expression, his calm demeanor. The host gave a final, heartfelt statement before the show went to a commercial break. Thank you, X. You've given us all something to think about, and I believe that many will be touched by the message you've shared today. As the lights dimmed and the audience began to applaud, Elon remained still. His heart was racing, his thoughts in turmoil. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing. The world was never going to look at his son the same way again. Backstage, Elon crouched down beside X, brushing a stray lock of hair out of his face. You did great, kid, he said, his voice tight with emotion. X looked up at him, his big eyes full of that same calm certainty. I told them the truth, Dad. The light is real. Elon nodded slowly. He didn't know how to respond to that. The boy was right in a way. He had shared something so pure, so profound, that it couldn't be ignored. And in that moment, Elon realized that perhaps the world wasn't just looking at his son anymore. Maybe they were looking at something greater. A message that had the potential to change hearts, to unite people, to spark a shift in the way humanity saw each other. As they left the studio, the world continued to buzz with the echoes of X's words. But in Elon's mind, one thought consumed him. What happens next? The days following the televised interview were a whirlwind. X's appearance on Pastor Michael's show, coupled with his simple yet profound message, spread like wildfire. Clips of the segment circulated across social media, and news outlets across the globe ran stories, all fixated on one thing: the child who spoke about Jesus like he knew him personally. For Elon, it was like watching his life take a turn into uncharted territory. Every corner he turned, there was another reporter, another request for an interview. Calls flooded in from religious leaders, media personalities, and curious followers, all wanting to speak with him and his son. But Elon kept it all at arm's length. While X's words had touched something deep within him, the overwhelming attention was unsettling. The more time passed, the clearer it became that this moment wasn't just a passing trend. It was something monumental. People across the globe were asking, who is X? What is this light he speaks of? His words transcended any celebrity status, any business empire, or even technological breakthrough. X was speaking of something that cut straight to the heart of humanity. Despite the media frenzy, X seemed unaffected. He continued his usual activities, playing with his toys, spending time with his family, and even attending his regular schoolwork. It was as if the weight of the world's attention didn't faze him at all. In fact, there was an uncanny peace about him, a quiet assurance that suggested he wasn't simply reacting to the world, but was somehow in sync with something beyond it. Elon spent the next few days trying to process everything. He had always prided himself on thinking rationally, logically, and strategically, but now his mind was in turmoil. The truth X had shared felt undeniable, yet Elon couldn't reconcile it with his own worldview. Science had always been his anchor, his proof, his guide. But here was his son offering something that couldn't be measured or quantified. It was a message of faith, of love, of divine presence. The tension between Elon's two worlds, the world of technology and science and the world of faith and spirituality, grew. Could they coexist? Was X's message simply a child's naive fantasy, or was there something more to it? One afternoon, as Elon sat at his desk in his home office, reviewing a SpaceX project, X entered the room. The boy's presence was like a quiet breeze, light and unassuming, yet always there. "Dad?" X's small voice broke Elon's concentration. Elon looked up from his work, a smile forming at the sight of his son. "What's up, kid?" X was standing at the doorway, his little fingers lightly clasped together. "I want to talk to you about something." Elon leaned back in his chair, intrigued. "Sure. What is it?" X walked into the room and sat down, on the edge of the chair next to Elon. His small feet barely touched the ground. The calmness in his eyes never wavered. "I think you're confused," X said simply. Elon chuckled, though there was a hint of uncertainty in his laugh. "You think so, huh? Well, maybe you're right. There's a lot going on right now." X nodded, his gaze steady. "You don't have to understand everything right away, but I think you should try to listen more." Elon's smile faltered slightly, his brow furrowing. "Listen to what exactly?" "To the light," X said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "It's not in your brain, Dad. It's in your heart." Elon's heart skipped a beat. He had heard those words before. X had said them during their conversation under the stars, but hearing them again, spoken with such simplicity, hit him harder now. "You really believe that, don't you?" Elon asked softly. His voice filled. With a mix of wonder and disbelief, X nodded. "Yes, and I want you to believe too, because it's real, it's inside everyone. You just have to choose to see it." For a long moment, father and son sat in silence. Elon's mind was a storm of thoughts, but beneath the chaos, something in him shifted. The peace that X exuded, the purity of his words, made it hard to deny. Maybe, just maybe, There was something beyond what Elon could measure, something beyond the world of equations and technology that had consumed his life. After a while, Elon sighed, a mix of frustration and acceptance in his breath. "I don't know how to explain this, X," he admitted. "Everything I've ever built, everything I've worked for is based on logic, on what can be seen, tested, and proven. This light, this feeling you talk about, I just don't know if I can understand it." X smiled up at him, his eyes full of warmth and wisdom beyond his years. "That's okay, Dad. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to believe in the good." The simplicity of the statement took Elon's breath away. He had been trying to make sense of it all, to fit it into a box that was measurable and tangible. But X wasn't asking for that. He wasn't asking for proof or logic. He was asking for faith. That evening, as the day wound down and the family gathered for dinner, Elon sat quietly, his thoughts swirling. The noise of the outside world, the media, the interviews, the people reaching out to him, faded into the background. All he could hear was the quiet voice of his son, telling him to believe in the light, to believe in something that couldn't be seen but could only be felt. Elon didn't know where this journey would take them, but in that moment, sitting at the dinner table with X, Grimes, and the rest of his family, he realized that the world had changed, and so had he. There was no going back, no erasing the impact X's words had already made. As the evening settled into a comfortable silence, Elon looked over at X, who was happily eating his meal, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had followed them. But that was X, calm, centered, unbothered by anything that didn't matter. And maybe, just maybe, that was the lesson Elon needed to learn. It didn't take long for the world to catch on to the message X had shared. His words had stirred something deep in the hearts of millions, something that no amount of technology or innovation could replace. It was a quiet revolution, one that didn't rely on the promise of new gadgets or groundbreaking discoveries, but on something far more profound, the possibility of change through belief, love, and connection. As the days went by, people from all walks of life reached out to Elon and X, sharing their personal stories. Messages poured in from parents who had been inspired to reconnect with their children, from individuals who had found new hope in their faith, and from those who felt they had been lost, only to feel the light that X spoke of guide them back to something greater than themselves. Elon, ever the skeptic, had expected the frenzy to die down eventually. But it didn't. Instead, it seemed to grow, gaining momentum with each passing day. The world wasn't just intrigued by a tech mogul's son speaking about Jesus, it was captivated by the purity of the message itself. One afternoon, Elon found himself in the quiet of his office once again, but this time the hum of technology seemed far less important. His phone buzzed incessantly with messages and emails, but Elon barely paid attention to them. His mind was focused on something else, entirely. He thought about what X had said to him in their private conversation. You don't have to understand everything, Dad," X had told him. "You just have to believe in the good." It was that simple truth that had stuck with Elon, gnawing at him, even in the midst of all his success. The world had changed since X's appearance on television, not just in how people viewed his son, but in how they viewed themselves and each other. What had started as a simple message had now become a movement. Elon was walking a fine line, caught between the world he had always known and the one his son had opened up to him. The future seemed uncertain, and while he had always been able to map out his next steps with precision, this was different. There were no clear blueprints for this kind of transformation. As he sat in his office, his phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Grimes, a quick text that simply read, "We need to talk." Elon frowned slightly and immediately called her. "Hey, what's up?" he asked as soon as she picked up. Grimes's voice sounded calm but serious. "I've been getting some requests too, from people who want to talk to X, ask him questions. It's not just about the media anymore. It's about the faith community, the people who are genuinely moved by what he said." Elon paused for a moment, the weight of the conversation sinking in. "I know, it's all so much, I'm not sure how to handle it." "I know," Grimes replied softly. "But this is bigger than us now. It's bigger than any of our companies or our careers. This is about a message of hope, a message that's touching people. I think we need to listen to X, to the world. Maybe it's time for all of us to step back and really think about what this means. Elon sighed, running a hand through his hair. I've been thinking about it non-stop. It feels overwhelming. Like, how do we even start to guide this? What if we mess it up? Grimes was quiet for a beat before answering. We don't have to have all the answers. X has his own path. Maybe our role is just to help him stay grounded, to protect him from the noise. Elon closed his eyes, taking in the weight of her words. He had never been one to shy away from challenges, but this felt different. He couldn't simply approach this like another business venture, another opportunity to conquer. This was about something bigger, something intangible. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Grimes, Elon admitted. It's hard to accept that maybe there's something beyond what I can control, but you're right. Maybe the best thing we can do is just let it happen. Let him lead us. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Grimes spoke with quiet resolve. Exactly. We'll be there to support him, but X has a wisdom that none of us can ignore. I think that's the lesson. As the conversation ended, Elon felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. He still didn't fully understand everything X had said, but he was beginning to realize that he didn't need to. Maybe the key wasn't in figuring it out, but in allowing it to unfold naturally. In the days that followed, the attention surrounding X only grew. Media outlets from around the world requested interviews, and even some of the most prominent religious leaders reached out, eager to meet with the boy who had spoken so clearly about Jesus. It was as if the world was waiting for X to share more of his message, to guide them in a way they hadn't felt before. Elon found himself navigating a new world, one where his son wasn't just a symbol of technological progress, but of spiritual awakening. But it was a world that required him to let go of his usual certainty, his precise control. It was a world where faith, not logic, held the power. Despite the chaos, X remained unfazed. He continued with his daily routine, unburdened by the weight of the expectations placed on him. To him, the light was simply a part of life, and sharing it with others was just what he was meant to do. One morning, as they prepared to leave for another scheduled media appearance, Elon found himself watching X. The boy was sitting quietly at the table, drawing something in a notebook. Elon bent down beside him, his heart swelling with an emotion he couldn't fully name. You know, X, you've really changed the world. X looked up at him, his smile as serene as always. I didn't do it, Dad, the light did. And in that moment, Elon realized that maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand after all. The light that X spoke of was not something to be understood through logic or measurement. It was something to be experienced, to be felt, and that was enough. As the weeks passed, the world seemed to settle into a new rhythm. The initial frenzy that followed X's words had died down somewhat, but the ripple effect was still felt. Every conversation, every interaction that Elon had seemed to come back to one thing: the light. People wanted to know more. They wanted to understand, and in many cases, they wanted to believe. X's message had sparked something in them, something that couldn't be captured by the usual metrics of success or advancement. It was a longing for connection, for meaning, for something beyond what could be seen with the eyes or measured with the mind. Elon had taken a step back from the public eye to give his son space to grow, but the conversations were impossible to avoid. Every time he left his house, there were reporters waiting outside, and social media was flooded with comments from people sharing their own reflections on what X had said. Many spoke of feeling lost or disconnected, but now, after hearing the simple words from a 5-year-old boy, they felt something shift within them, a renewed sense of hope. For Elon, the shift was more complicated. He still wrestled with his own understanding of X's message. Part of him wanted to reject it, to dismiss it as the innocent words of a child. But another part of him, the part that had watched X speak so confidently and peacefully, couldn't shake the sense that maybe there was truth in it. Maybe X had tapped into something the rest of the world had missed. The question was, did Elon have the courage to embrace it? One quiet evening, as Elon sat at his desk working late into the night, he was interrupted by a soft knock on his office door. "Dad?" X's voice was calm like a gentle breeze. Elon looked up from his work, his tired eyes meeting his son's. "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" X walked into the room, holding a small piece of paper in his hand. "I wrote something," he said, holding it out for Elon to take. Elon smiled, intrigued. "You wrote something? What is it?" X simply nodded and waited as Elon took the paper. It was a drawing. Something simple but beautiful. A drawing of a light, radiant and warm, shining from the center of a heart. Surrounding it were words, written in a child's uneven handwriting, but the message was clear. "The light is always here. Just open your heart to see it." Elon felt a strange tightening in his chest. The message was so simple, yet it was the same one X had shared on that live broadcast weeks ago. The words were still fresh in his mind, still echoing through his thoughts. But this drawing, this piece of paper, felt different. It was as though X had distilled everything into a single clear invitation. "Open your heart." X stood there waiting for a response. Elon sat back in his chair, still holding the drawing, and looked at his son. He could see the innocence in X's eyes, but there was also something else, something deep, as though X knew more than he could possibly understand. "Dad," X said after a long pause, "you've been trying really hard to figure this out, but you don't have to. Just listen. The light is already inside you. All you have to do is see it." Elon felt a lump in his throat. How could a child, someone so young, be able to say something so profound? And how could he, someone who had spent his life seeking answers in equations and algorithms, be the one to miss the most important truth of all? He set the drawing down on his desk and sighed deeply. "I don't know if I can, X. I'm not sure how to let go of everything I've always believed." X's face softened, his expression filled with understanding. "You don't have to let go of everything, Dad. Just let the light in." There it was again, the simplicity of the message. X wasn't asking Elon to give up his work, his dreams, or his ambitions. He wasn't asking him to abandon his passion for exploration or technology. He was asking him to let the light in, to open his heart to something beyond the tangible, beyond the measured. In that moment, Elon realized that he had been missing the point all along. The light wasn't something to be proven or tested. It wasn't something that could be measured by any of the tools at his disposal. It was simply something to be believed in, something to be felt, something to be experienced. "Maybe I've been making this more complicated than it needs to be," Elon said quietly. More to himself than to XX smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "You always do that, Dad." Elon chuckled softly, the tension in his chest easing just a little. "I guess I do." X reached out and took his father's hand, looking up at him with eyes that were full of trust and love. "I'm not here to make you do anything, Dad. I just want you to be happy. And you'll be happy when you find the light inside you." The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time in a long time, Elon felt something shift. Inside himself. It wasn't a dramatic, life-altering change, but it was a beginning, a quiet, subtle invitation to open himself up to something beyond his understanding. That night, as Elon lay in bed, his thoughts swirled with the events of the past few weeks. X's words, his drawing, the way his son had spoken about the light. It was all so simple yet so powerful. It was like a door had been opened, and for the first time Elon wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was ready to step through it. The world had been waiting for him to do something big, something groundbreaking. But perhaps the biggest thing he could do wasn't creating the next spaceflight or advancing artificial intelligence. Maybe the most groundbreaking thing he could do was open his heart, listen to the light, and let it guide him. It wasn't about having all the answers or controlling every detail. It was about trust, faith, and love. As Elon drifted to sleep that night, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, he felt as if he were exactly where he needed to be. It was a sunny Saturday morning when Elon received an unexpected call. He had just finished breakfast with X and was taking a moment to enjoy the quiet of the house, which felt almost surreal after weeks of intense media attention. The world was still buzzing about X's words, and yet, for the first time in a long while Elon felt an inner peace that had nothing to do with his ventures in technology or space. He answered the call with a faint sense of curiosity. "Elon, it's Father Joseph," the voice on the other end said. "I hope you're well." Elon had met Father Joseph just a few days after X's appearance on the talk show. Father Joseph was a well-known figure in the religious community, and he had reached out after hearing about X's message. "Hello, Father." "I'm good, thank you. What can I do for you?" "I know things have been busy for you, but I wanted to personally invite you and your family to join us for Mass tomorrow," Father Joseph said. "I believe there's something special about your son, Elon. His words, his message have touched many hearts, and it seems to me that he might be the key to something much larger." Elon shifted in his chair, unsure how to respond. The invitation was kind, but it felt sudden. The idea of going to Mass, of stepping into a church again after so many years of avoiding religious practices, stirred a mixture of emotions in him. "Thank you. You for the invitation, Father. I appreciate it," Elon said cautiously. "I'll talk it over with my family and let you know." "Of course, no pressure," Father Joseph replied warmly. "But I do believe your son has a unique calling. This could be an opportunity for all of us to come together, to listen and to learn. I would love for you to join us." Elon hung up the phone, feeling a strange weight in his chest. He had spent his entire life chasing after things, technology, innovation, breakthroughs, and yet now he found himself confronted with something that couldn't be quantified, something that called for his attention in a way that wasn't about ambition but about connection, about belief. X had already begun asking questions, probing deeper into the nature of faith, God, and life. His mind was alive with curiosity, and as much as Elon wanted to shield him from the complexities of the world, he couldn't help but feel that X had something important to offer. Maybe it was time for him to start listening more carefully. Later that evening, as the family gathered, in the living room, Elon brought up the invitation. "Father Joseph invited us to Mass tomorrow," he said, looking over at Grimes, who had been sitting beside him on the couch. Grimes looked up, intrigued. "Mass? Like a church service?" "Yes," Elon replied, his voice tinged with hesitation. "He believes X might have something important to share. I think he wants us to join." Grimes nodded slowly, sensing the underlying complexity of Elon's response. "What do you think, Elon? Do you want to go?" Elon leaned back, running his hand through his hair. "I don't know. I mean, I've never really been into the whole church thing, but after everything with X, I think maybe it's time to at least listen, to see what happens." Grimes smiled softly, her eyes reflecting a quiet understanding. "Maybe it's not about believing in everything at once. Maybe it's just about being open. For X. For us." X, who had been sitting quietly on the floor playing with his toys, suddenly looked up, his innocent face serious. "I want to go, Daddy," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I want to see the light there." Elon's heart swelled in his chest. How could he argue with that? X's words were always simple, but they carried a weight that Elon couldn't ignore. "All right," Elon said, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "We'll go. Let's see what happens." The next morning, the Musk family made their way to the church. It was a small, quaint building nestled on a quiet street, the kind of church that seemed unremarkable at first glance. Yet as they walked inside, Elon felt a strange sense of reverence fill the air. There was something about the space, the stained glass windows, the flickering candles, that made the world outside seem distant, almost irrelevant. Father Joseph greeted them warmly as they entered, his eyes lighting up when he saw X. "Welcome," he said, his voice rich with kindness. "We're so glad to have you here." X, who had been holding onto Elon's hand, looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Where's the light?" he asked softly. Father Joseph chuckled and gently guided X toward the altar. "The light is everywhere, my dear boy. It's in the air, in the people, and in our hearts. It's what brings us all together." As the service began, Elon felt a quiet calm settle over him. He had expected to feel disconnected, maybe even awkward, but instead there was a peace in the ritual, in the prayers, in the unity of the congregation. For the first time in a long while, He wasn't focused on the world's demands, on his work, or on the chaos that seemed to swirl around him. For the first time, he was present. During the sermon, Father Joseph spoke about faith, about the power of believing in something greater than oneself, and how sometimes that belief could bring light to even the darkest of places. As he spoke, Elon couldn't help but think of A-Xie's words, how they had already brought light into their lives. How had this small boy, with his simple understanding, managed to see something that so many others had missed? After the service, Father Joseph took a moment to speak with Elon privately. "You're a man of great intellect, Elon," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "But sometimes the greatest things in life can't be explained by logic or reason. Faith, love and the light, they're beyond all of that." Elon nodded slowly, his mind racing. "I don't know if I'm ready to fully embrace everything, Father, but I think X might be onto something. Maybe we all are." Father Joseph smiled warmly. "I believe you're already on the right path." As they left the church, the cool air outside seemed refreshing, almost cleansing. Elon felt lighter somehow, as if a small weight had been lifted from his shoulders. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a beginning. Maybe X's message was just the start of something bigger, something that Elon couldn't quite see yet, but was willing to explore. That night, as the family gathered around the dinner table, X spoke again, his voice full of innocence and wisdom. "The light is in all of us, right? We just have to let it out." Elon looked at X, his heart full. "Yeah, buddy, I think you're right." And for the first time in a long time, Elon felt the light, simple, quiet but undeniable, begin to shine within him. The story of X's words about the light and Jesus had traveled far and wide. What began as a simple moment on a talk show had become a global phenomenon. News outlets, social media platforms, and even spiritual leaders were talking about it. People were moved by the simplicity of his message, and many were asking themselves profound questions. What is the light? Where can I find it? Elon, once the face of futuristic technologies and the business world's most high-profile entrepreneur, found himself at the center of a very different kind of conversation. The world now saw him not just as the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, but as the father of a child who had said something truly remarkable, a child who, in his innocence, had brought light into the lives of millions. It was early one morning when Elon received another call. This time it was from a well-known TV host, Sarah Miller, who had been at the forefront of covering X's live TV appearance. She had invited Elon and X back for an exclusive interview, one that she claimed could be the most important conversation of their careers. "Good morning, Elon," Sarah's voice crackled through the phone. "I hope you're doing well. We'd love to have you and X back on the show. There's been such an overwhelming response to his message, and I think we all need to talk about it more. People are dying to hear from you both. What do you say?" Elon hesitated. He knew the media circus that would come with another appearance, but the invitation seemed too significant to ignore. He looked over at X, who was sitting at the breakfast table, quietly munching on his cereal, his big brown eyes sparkling with curiosity. "X," Elon said, walking over to him. "Sarah wants us to come back on the show. Are you up for it?" X's face lit up. "Yes, Daddy. I want to talk about the light again." Elon smiled, his heart swelling. How could he deny him? The world had been moved by a 5-year-old boy's understanding of something so deep, so pure, that it had set off a chain reaction of introspection and hope. Maybe it was time to go further. Maybe X had more to share, and it was time for the world to listen. A few days later, Elon and X found themselves sitting on a plush sofa in front of a camera, the studio lights casting a soft glow on their faces. Sarah Miller stood beside them, a gentle smile on her lips, but her eyes betrayed a hint of nervous excitement. She knew this interview would be unlike any other. "Welcome back, Elon X," Sarah began, her voice calm but laced with anticipation. "The world has been waiting for you. After your last appearance, people all over the globe were moved by X's words about the light and Jesus. It's safe to say that you've left an indelible mark on all of us." Elon gave a small, humble nod. "It's not just me. It's X. He's the one who spoke those words." X looked up at his father with a serene expression, as if the weight of the world was not on his shoulders. "The light is everywhere," he said simply, his words hanging in the air like a breath of fresh air. "In the sky, in the people, in our hearts." Sarah's eyes softened as she listened to him speak. "X, what do you mean when you talk about the light? It's such a simple idea, but it has captivated so many people. Can you explain it to us a little more?" X smiled, his face glowing with the innocence only a child could have. "The light is like love. It's something you can't see, but you can feel it. It's like the warm feeling you get when you hug someone. It's in everyone. All we have to do is open our hearts, and then we can feel it." Elon looked at his son, his heart swelling with pride. How could such a young child understand something so profound, so beyond what any scientist or philosopher had ever described? X had somehow tapped into a universal truth, a truth that had been buried under the noise and distractions of the modern world. Sarah turned her gaze to Elon. "Elon, as a father, how do you feel about what X has said? His message has made such a powerful impact." Elon took a deep breath, his mind briefly drifting back to the days before all of this started. He had been a man of logic and reason, a man who had built his career on the belief that everything could be explained, understood, and controlled. But X's words had shaken him to his core. They had made him question everything he had thought he knew about life, faith, and the things that truly matter. "I have to admit, I'm still processing everything," Elon said, his voice quiet, but filled with sincerity. "I've spent my life chasing after progress, trying to understand the world through technology and innovation. But X's words have forced me to think differently. Maybe the answers we're all looking for aren't always in the things we can measure or control. Maybe they're in the things we can't see but can feel, the things that bring us together like love, like the light." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "It seems like X's message has struck a chord with so many people. It's something that resonates on a deeply emotional level. People from all walks of life are feeling this sense of connection, this longing for something greater than themselves. How do you think that happened, Elon?" Elon paused for a moment, the weight of the question settling in. I think it's because X's message is pure. It's not clouded by the complexities of the world, the barriers that we've built around ourselves. He's just speaking from the heart. And maybe, just maybe, the world needed to hear that. We've become so consumed with our own struggles, our own successes, that we've forgotten what it means to simply be kind, to love one another, to share that light. As the interview continued, Elon and X shared more about their journey, their experiences, and their hopes for the future. The conversation was less about the tech industry and more about something deeper, something that transcended the limits of business and innovation. The interview concluded with Sarah looking at the camera, her voice soft but compelling. "Elon, Musk and his son, X, have given us all something to think about. In a world that often feels divided, their message is simple. The light is inside all of us, and all we need to do is let it out. Let love and kindness guide us." As the cameras stopped rolling, Sarah turned to Elon and X, a sense of wonder in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere. "You've given us something that will stay with us for a long time." Elon and X stood up, and Elon couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. He had come into this interview with doubts, with fears, but now, looking at his son, he realized that maybe the most important thing he could do was to trust in X's message, to trust in the light. As they walked off the stage, X looked up at his father and smiled. "See, Daddy? The light is everywhere." Elon smiled, his heart full. "Yeah, X. I think you're right." In the days following the TV interview, the world seemed to have changed. The story of X and his simple yet profound message about the light spread like wildfire across the globe. People from all walks of life, whether they were religious, spiritual, or secular, found themselves reflecting on X's words. The message was simple. The light is inside everyone, and we just have to let it out. The ripple effect was immediate and profound. Churches invited X and Elon to speak at their services. Social media was flooded with posts from people who felt as though they had experienced a moment of clarity, as if something deep within them had been awakened. The hashtag, the Æ A-Xii, trended worldwide, and everywhere Elon went, people stopped him to share how his son had touched their lives. One afternoon, Elon was on a flight to one of his business meetings when he noticed a woman sitting a few rows ahead of him, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and caught Elon's eye. Her face lit up, and she walked over to him. "Excuse me, are you Elon Musk?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Elon nodded politely. "Yes, that's me. I just wanted to tell you how much your son's words have impacted me," she said, her eyes moist with emotion. "I've been struggling with my faith for years, trying to figure out where I belong in this world, but after hearing him speak, I feel like I finally understand. It's not about trying to control everything. It's about letting the light in. It's about love. And I needed to hear that more than you can imagine." Elon smiled softly, a mix of humility and wonder crossing his features. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The woman returned to her seat, and Elon sat back, contemplating her words. He had never imagined that a simple moment, a few words from his son, would lead to such a profound shift in so many people's lives. The weight of the responsibility began to settle on his shoulders. While he had always been someone who chased after technological advancements, now he found himself in the middle of something that felt much larger than anything he had ever worked on before. Back home in California, the media frenzy continued. Interviews, articles, and even documentaries began to focus on X and his message. People were desperate for answers, for something to believe in, and X had given them hope. The world was listening. However, not everyone was pleased with the attention that X was receiving. While many hailed the young boy's words as a divine revelation, others were more skeptical. Some believed that X was simply repeating things he had heard without truly understanding the depth of what he was saying. Others questioned whether it was right for Elon to allow his son to become a symbol of something so deeply spiritual, particularly considering Elon's public image as a tech mogul rather than a religious figure. One evening, Elon sat down for a private conversation with Grimes. They had both been receiving a lot of attention from the media, and it was starting to feel overwhelming. The constant phone calls, the emails, the messages, it was becoming too much. They had to talk about it. "I don't know how much longer we can keep this up," Grimes said, her voice weary. "It's like the world is demanding more from us, more from X. I know he's just a kid, but it feels like people are treating him like a prophet. It's getting scary." Elon leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "I know, I didn't expect any of this. I thought it would pass, but it's only getting bigger." "What do you think we should do?" Grimes asked, her eyes searching his. "I don't know." Elon replied honestly. "I think we need to protect X. He's just a child, but at the same time I feel like what he's saying is so important. It's like he's tapped into something that the world really needs right now." Grimes nodded. "Maybe it's not about us. Maybe it's about him and what he feels he's supposed to do. We have to let him figure that out." Elon sighed, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure what the right decision was. He had built companies that changed the world, but this was something different. It wasn't about innovation or progress. It was about faith, hope, and something deeper than anything he had ever dealt with before. Meanwhile, X continued to be his calm, serene self. He would often come to Elon and Grimes with simple questions, things that showed how deeply he was processing the world around him. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, X looked up at his father and asked, "Daddy, what's next for us?" Elon was taken aback by the question. "What do you mean, buddy?" "What's next for the light?" X clarified. "If it's in all of us, what happens next?" Elon blinked, struggling to find the right words. He had spent his life envisioning the future of humanity, of space, of technology, but now X was asking about something far more fundamental. "That's a big question, X," Elon said softly. "Maybe the next step is to share the light. Maybe the next step is for all of us to try to make the world a little brighter. I think that's the only thing that matters now. how we can all bring more love, more kindness, more light to each other. X smiled, as though he understood perfectly, and nodded his head. I think that's the best thing, Daddy. I think the light will make everything better. The simplicity of X's answer was both humbling and profound. In that moment, Elon felt a shift inside him. It wasn't about technology or innovation. It was about something more, something that could change the world on a deeper, more human level. And maybe, just maybe, X was right. The light was inside all of them. As the weeks passed, the attention surrounding X's words only intensified. People from all over the world were reaching out, asking for guidance, seeking answers to questions they hadn't even known they had. It wasn't just a passing trend, it was a movement, a quiet revolution of the heart. And at the center of it all was a 5-year-old boy who had, with the innocence of a child, ignited something far bigger than anyone could have predicted. Elon found himself at a crossroads. The tech mogul who had spent his life conquering the realms of space exploration, electric cars and AI, now found himself contemplating a question far more profound than any engineering challenge. What does it mean to truly lead? One evening, as he sat alone in his office at SpaceX, his mind racing with thoughts about his companies, his family, and the world at large, a message appeared on his screen. It was from a well-known spiritual leader, Dr. Sarah Patel, someone who had been very vocal about the power of X's message. The email was short but powerful. Elon, I believe your son has something important to share with the world. I would love to meet with you both and discuss what he has said. I think it's time to start looking at the bigger picture. We can help. Guide the world toward a new kind of understanding, a world where love and light are the foundation of everything. I look forward to hearing from you. Elon paused. The message was respectful, yet there was a sense of urgency in it. Dr. Patel was a renowned figure in the world of faith and spirituality, and her words carried weight. He had heard about her from several people in his circle, and while Elon wasn't sure what to make of it all, he realized that this invitation could be a pivotal moment in the journey X had unwittingly started. He closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about what this could mean for his son. X had already said things that had moved millions. If this was the next step in something bigger, Elon needed to be sure they were both ready for it. Let's go see her, he said aloud to himself, determination in his voice. The next day, they flew out to meet Dr. Patel. The location was a serene retreat in the mountains, far from the bustle of the world's cities. It was a quiet place, a place of reflection and contemplation. X, ever the curious one, seemed excited to see a new place, but his quiet demeanor suggested he was ready for whatever lay ahead. When they arrived, Dr. Patel greeted them warmly, her gentle presence immediately putting them at ease. She was an elegant woman in her late 40s, with a calming energy that felt like an invitation to trust. After a short introduction, they sat in a peaceful room with large windows that opened up to a view of the rolling hills and trees. Elon, Dr. Patel began, her voice soothing, I want to thank you for coming. I've been following the impact of X's words. It's rare, truly rare, to see a child speak with such clarity about matters of the heart, of faith, and of the light. It's as if he's tapped into something ancient, something deep. Elon shifted in his seat, trying to read the expression on her face. What do you think it means? He asked. His words have affected so many people, but I'm still not entirely sure what to make of it all. Dr. Patel smiled gently. That's understandable, Elon. This is a journey, not a destination. X's words are not just his own. They're a message for all of us. They've awakened something in people, and that awakening is exactly what the world needs right now. You see, X isn't just speaking about the light as a concept. He's speaking about something that exists within all of us. But it requires us to acknowledge it, to nurture it, and to let it grow. And in doing so, we change the world. X, sitting quietly beside his father, looked up at Dr. Patel, his innocent eyes filled with a quiet wisdom that made her pause. You mean the light is in everyone? X asked, his voice soft but confident. Even in the people who don't know it. Dr. Patel's eyes softened, and she nodded. Yes, X. The light is in everyone, but many don't realize it yet. They've been distracted by the noise of the world, by fear and anger, by pain. The light is what connects us all. It's what can heal us if we let it. Elon looked at his son, feeling a wave of pride wash over him. X was asking the right questions, the questions that people of all ages were asking, but in a way that only a child could. "I don't think the world is ready for this," Elon admitted. "I mean, people are saying that X's words are changing their lives, but is it possible that they're misunderstanding him? Is it possible that we're all just looking for something to believe in?" Dr. Patel's smile remained steady. "Perhaps, Elon, but isn't that the beauty of it? People are searching for something deeper, something that isn't driven by technology or business. They're looking for something that connects them to each other, to the divine, to the light. And X's words, his simple words, are giving them hope. You have an opportunity here not to lead them with your companies, but to lead them with your heart, to help people understand that the light is not just in X, but in all of us." The conversation continued, and as the day wore on, Elon found himself deeply moved by Dr. Patel's insight. It wasn't just about his son anymore. It was about something much bigger, something that could potentially change the way humanity viewed itself, its future, and its relationship with each other. That night, as Elon and X lay down to sleep in the quiet retreat, Elon reflected on the meeting. He thought about the legacy he would leave behind, not just in technology, but in something far more lasting. He realized that perhaps the light X spoke of wasn't just an abstract idea. It was a call to action, a call for humanity to embrace kindness, love, and compassion above all else. As the stars filled the sky, Elon whispered to his son, "You know, X, I think you're right. The light is in all of us." X nodded, his small hand finding Elon's. "I think it's always been there, Daddy. We just have to let it out." The days following the retreat with Dr. Patel had left Elon with a renewed sense of purpose. As he looked at the quiet beauty of his son, he couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility. The words X spoke about the light were not just passing ideas. They were a reflection of something deep within the fabric of humanity, something that had been waiting to be recognized. And X, in his childlike innocence, was the one to unlock it for the world. Elon had always believed in pushing the boundaries of what was possible, but this was something different. He was no longer just thinking about rockets, electric cars, or artificial intelligence. He was thinking about the human heart, about what it meant to truly connect, not through technology, but through love, kindness, and light. It was a quiet Saturday morning when Elon sat down with Grimes to discuss the next steps. They had spent the last few weeks reflecting on everything that had happened, on the interviews, the messages, and the attention X was receiving. The world was shifting, and they needed to decide how best to guide X through it all. "Elon, we have to be careful," Grimes said, her voice serious. "The world is watching and people are starting to look to X for answers, but he's just a child. We can't let him get lost in this." Elon nodded. He understood the weight of her words. "I know, but what X is saying, it's powerful. People are listening. They're craving something real, something that isn't built on profit or power." Grimes sighed, her expression softening. "I get that, but we also have to protect him. He can't carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, not at his age." "I agree," Elon said, "but I think we have an opportunity here. Maybe X isn't just here to change the way people think about technology or business. Maybe he's here to show them something more." Grimes raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Elon paused, gathering his thoughts. "Maybe it's not just about us changing the world. Maybe it's about helping the world change itself. What if we could inspire people to be better, kinder, more loving? What if we could show them that the light they're searching for is already inside them?" The conversation hung in the air between them, filled with possibility. Elon knew that this wasn't going to be easy. The road ahead was uncertain, and there would be those who doubted, criticized, and questioned their every move. But deep down, he believed in what X was saying, and he believed that they were part of something much bigger than themselves. That evening, as X was getting ready for bed, Elon sat beside him, his mind still racing with the weight of the conversation he had just had with Grimes. X, he said, looking into his son's curious eyes, I think we have an important decision to make. Your words, they've touched so many people, and I think it's time we do something more with them. X tilted his head, his small face serious. What do you mean, Daddy? I think we should help others see the light too, Elon explained. You've shown people that the light is inside them, but I think there's more we can do. We can share your message, but we can also show people how to live it, how to be kind, how to help others, how to make the world a better place. X's eyes brightened. Like a big light show, Elon chuckled, his heart swelling with love. Something like that. But instead of a light show, we'll help people find the light in themselves. We'll give them the tools to make the world better. X nodded thoughtfully, then gave his father a wide grin. I like that idea. We should all have lights, Daddy. Elon smiled back. I think you're right. The next day, Elon began making calls, reaching out to organizations, faith leaders, and community groups. He wanted to start a movement of kindness, compassion, and understanding. He didn't know exactly what shape it would take, but he knew it had to be done. He couldn't let this moment slip by. The world had been given a gift, a simple truth from a child, and now it was time to spread it. Meanwhile, X continued to inspire in ways no one could have predicted. At a local charity event, X was invited to speak. When the time came for him to take the stage, the crowd fell silent, waiting for the young boy to share his thoughts. X, holding his father's hand, stepped forward with the confidence of someone far beyond his years. I think we can all be lights, X said, his voice soft but clear. And lights make everything better. Lights make people happy. So if you're a light, you can make someone else feel better. And when you do that, they'll be a light too. The crowd erupted into applause, some people with tears in their eyes. It was a moment of connection, a reminder of the power of kindness. X's words were simple, but they carried an undeniable truth. In a world that had become increasingly divided, his message of love and light was a beacon of hope. As the event ended, Elon looked at his son with a mixture of pride and awe. He had always known that X was special, but this was something else entirely. X was becoming a voice for change, not because he was trying to be a leader, but because he was speaking the truth. The kind of truth that resonated deeply in the hearts of everyone who heard it. Elon realized then that they were no longer just reacting to the world around them. They were shaping it, one word, one moment, one act of kindness at a time. The world was waking up, and it was ready for the light. The momentum from X's simple yet profound words continued to grow. What started as a curious moment on a live TV show had transformed into a global movement. People were speaking out, sharing their experiences, and finding new hope in their everyday lives. Elon couldn't deny the impact. It was as if his son had opened a door to a new way of seeing the world, one that centered around love, kindness, and light. In the weeks that followed, X's message became a focal point in conversations across social media platforms. Hashtags like #IXTheLight and Light Within spread like wildfire. But it wasn't just about the social media attention. What mattered most was the way people began to live differently. Stories began flooding in from all corners of the globe. Stories of people rekindling relationships, of communities coming together to help one another, of individuals discovering a sense of purpose they hadn't known before. Elon, ever the pragmatist, found himself wrestling with a deep sense of responsibility. He had been used to leading through technology, innovation, and business. But now, the weight of this new movement felt different. This was about more than just products or companies. It was about guiding humanity towards something that transcended everything else, something that connected people on a spiritual level. One morning, after a particularly exhausting week of meetings, Elon sat down with X in their living room. X was playing with his toys, completely unaware of the chaos his words had unleashed on the world. Elon watched him for a long moment, feeling a deep appreciation for the simplicity and purity of his son's heart. X, Elon said softly, breaking the silence. X looked up from his toys, his big eyes wide with curiosity. "What's up, Daddy?" Elon smiled, his voice filled with wonder. "Do you know how many people you've helped?" X thought about it for a moment, his brow furrowing in concentration. "A lot." "A lot," Elon confirmed. "More people than I can count." X smiled, then returned to his toys. Elon's heart swelled with pride. It was both humbling and awe-inspiring to see how much of an impact X had made, all without even trying. The innocence of a child, coupled with his unshakable belief in the power of love and light, had started a ripple that was growing with every passing day. At the same time, however, Elon couldn't ignore the growing tension that came with all the attention. As much as people were embracing the message, there were those who were skeptical, dismissive, and even critical. Elon had always been in the public eye, but this was different. This wasn't just about technology. It was about faith, spirituality, and humanity's capacity for change. It was a more personal kind of scrutiny, and it left him wondering if they were really ready for what was unfolding. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Elon's phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from an old colleague, a well-respected tech entrepreneur who had always been a voice of reason in Elon's life. "Hey, Elon," the message began. "I've been following the whole X thing. I get that people are feeling inspired, but let's not kid ourselves. You're playing with fire here. People are looking for meaning, and you're feeding them something that's unproven. You're risking your credibility by aligning with something that could backfire." Elon felt a twinge of unease. He knew this friend's concerns came from a place of genuine care. He wasn't trying to tear X down. He was simply worried about the fallout if the movement didn't have solid footing. Elon took a deep breath before he replied. "I understand your concerns," Elon wrote, "but sometimes we need to take a leap of faith. Maybe what people need isn't another product or breakthrough. Maybe what they need is a reminder of what really matters: connection, love, kindness." He stared at his phone, his finger hovering over the send button. For a moment, he hesitated. Was he really ready to take this kind of leap? To risk everything he had built for the sake of a message that wasn't rooted in anything tangible or measurable? But then he remembered the stories, the thousands of people who had reached out to him, telling him how X's words had changed their lives. With a final breath, he pressed send. "I'm in this," Elon typed. "We're in this." A few hours later, he received a reply. "I hope you're right, Elon. Just be careful." Elon set the phone down and looked across the dinner table at X, who was laughing as he made his toys dance. The innocence of his son reminded him that sometimes the greatest risks were the ones worth taking. After all, what was the point of all the success, all the wealth, if it didn't bring about something greater for humanity? The next day, Elon made a decision. He would start an initiative, a foundation that would embody everything X had been talking about. It would not just be about spreading a message of light, but about actively helping others. They would focus on education, mental health, kindness programs, and initiatives that brought people together in meaningful ways. The foundation would be a beacon of hope, one that encouraged people to look within themselves and share the light they carried. They named the foundation The Light Within. The announcement was made through a live broadcast, with Elon and X speaking together about the mission. X, as always, kept it simple. "The light is in everyone," he said, his voice sincere. "All we have to do is share it." As the broadcast ended, messages of support began to flood in from across the globe. People were eager to join the movement, to find ways they could contribute to something greater than themselves. But with the excitement came challenges. As expected, there were critics, voices that questioned the legitimacy of X's message and the Foundation's true intentions. Some believed it was a publicity stunt, while others doubted the sincerity of a child. Leading the way, Elon knew there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that the core message of kindness, light, and connection was something worth fighting for. And in the quiet moments, when X would come to him with a simple, "Daddy, we're helping." "People, right?" Elon would smile and say, "Yes, son, we are." And for the first time in a long while, Elon Musk felt truly at peace. The world had taken notice. The Light Within Foundation was now a symbol of hope, of change, and of the simple but powerful message X had shared. It was amazing to see how quickly people responded to X's words and to Elon's vision. But the journey was far from over. There was still so much more to be done, so many people to reach, and so many challenges to overcome. Elon spent his days meeting with world leaders, philanthropists, and visionaries, anyone who could help elevate the mission of the light within. The foundation was growing rapidly, with educational programs being set up in schools across the globe, mental health support initiatives in marginalized communities, and acts of kindness spreading like wildfire. It seemed that everywhere Elon went, people wanted to be a part of the movement. Yet despite the overwhelming support, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper at play here. The foundation was more than just a charity. It was becoming a cultural shift, a transformation that was reaching into people's hearts in a way that no technology ever could. X, who was now 5, was often at the center of the movement's public events. His innocent yet profound remarks about love, light, and kindness were becoming the hallmark of the light within. People were drawn to him, not just because he was Elon Musk's son, but because his words spoke to something universal, something inside all of them. It was as though X was channeling a truth that had been forgotten, a truth that was deeply spiritual and tied to the core of human existence. One sunny afternoon, as Elon and X were walking through a park near their home, Elon couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. The park was alive with people, families, children, elderly couples, all enjoying the beautiful day. But there was something different about the atmosphere. It felt lighter, more connected. People were smiling at each other, strangers were striking up conversations, and there was an unmistakable sense of warmth in the air. "Look, Daddy," X said, tugging on his father's hand. "Everyone's shining." Elon looked around, surprised by the clarity of his son's observation. He smiled, kneeling down to X's level. "Yes, son. They are. They're sharing their light." X beamed. "I told them they could." Elon chuckled softly, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. In that moment it became clear to him. This wasn't just about spreading a message, it was about igniting something inside people. X wasn't just teaching the world to love, he was showing them how to reconnect with their own inherent goodness. He was inspiring others to not only believe in the light within themselves, but to share it with the world. As they walked, Elon's phone buzzed with a message from Grimes. She was in the middle of a meeting but had sent an urgent note to update him on something important. "Elon, you need to see this. There's a new viral video going around and it's making waves." Curious, Elon pulled out his phone and clicked on the link Grimes had sent him. The video was of a woman from the Middle East, speaking in a crowded square. She was holding up a sign that said, "The light within." The woman, visibly moved, began to speak passionately about how X's words had given her hope and clarity during a time of personal hardship. The video then showed her walking through the crowded square, handing out flowers and gifts to people, strangers, inviting them to join her in spreading kindness. "Elon, people are doing this all over the world," Grimes had written. "They're taking X's message and turning it into action. It's like a global wave of kindness." Elon watched the video in awe. He had always known that X's words were powerful, but this was something else entirely. It wasn't just a movement. It was a global awakening. "I think we're on to something bigger than we ever imagined," Elon typed back to Grimes. Over the next few days, videos like the one Grimes had shown him began pouring in from all over the world. People in India, Africa, South America, and Europe were all sharing their stories, all inspired by X's message. Some were starting small initiatives, others were organizing large-scale community events to spread light and kindness, to make their cities and villages better places for everyone. But as the movement grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics began to question the Foundation's true motivations. There were whispers that the light within was just another way for Elon to boost his public image. Some argued that the movement was nothing more than a publicity stunt, a way for the Musk family to shift attention away from the controversies surrounding their other ventures. In one heated interview, a well-known news anchor confronted Elon. "You say this is about spreading kindness and love," the anchor said, his tone sharp. "But is this really about helping people, or is it just another way for you to make money and get positive PR?" Elon took a deep breath. He had prepared for this kind of question. I can see why you'd ask that, but let me be clear. The light within isn't about us. It's about something bigger. It's about reminding people of their humanity, their capacity for love. People are thirsty for meaning. X's message isn't about me or my family. It's about something that transcends us all. We're simply the messengers. Elon's words were sincere, but the anchor remained unconvinced. The interview was cut short, and the criticism only grew. Elon knew that the road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but he also knew that he couldn't turn back now. The foundation, X's words, and the movement that was growing couldn't be silenced by skeptics or naysayers. As they sat in their living room later that night, X climbed into Elon's lap, sensing his father's tension. "Daddy, are you sad?" Elon smiled softly, his heart warmed by the innocence in X's voice. "No, son, I'm not sad. I'm just focused. People need this, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure they get it." X nodded solemnly. "We'll share the light, Daddy. We'll make everyone shine." Elon hugged his son tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also a deep sense of gratitude. X was right. They were on the right path. The light they were sharing was worth fighting for. And so Elon Musk and his son continued on their mission, knowing that the world was watching and waiting for a spark of light to guide them through the darkness. The global impact of the Light Within Foundation was undeniable. What began as a simple idea, sparked by the innocent words of a 5-year-old child, had blossomed into an international movement. However, with great success came great challenges. The more the foundation grew, the more the world seemed to demand of Elon and X. The pressure was mounting, and Elon could feel it in every decision he made. The attention from the media was now overwhelming, and it wasn't always the kind of attention that felt supportive. Every move they made, every public appearance was scrutinized and analyzed by millions of eyes. People questioned their motives, their sincerity, and even the authenticity of X's words. Was a 5-year-old truly capable of understanding the depth of such profound concepts? Was this movement just a clever marketing tool wrapped in the guise of spiritual enlightenment? Elon found himself having to defend the foundation and its mission more than ever. Each interview seemed to be followed by more questions, more doubts. It was as if the world was torn between embracing the light that X was offering and rejecting it out of skepticism. Elon could feel the weight of it all, but he was determined not to let it shake his resolve. One evening, after a particularly difficult day filled with press conferences and tense discussions with his team, Elon retreated to his study. He sat at his desk, his hands resting on the wood, deep in thought. He thought about the critics, the naysayers, and the people who questioned the authenticity of their message. But then his mind turned to the supporters, the people whose lives had been changed by the movement. The stories he had heard about families reconnecting, communities coming together, and individuals finding purpose in their lives gave him the strength to push forward. Elon knew that any great movement faced opposition. The road to true change was never easy. But as he sat there, he reminded himself that this wasn't about pleasing everyone. It was about staying true to the core message of love, light, and kindness. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Grimes. "Elon, you need to see this," Grimes had written. "There's a new video, you won't believe it." Curious, Elon clicked the link. The video was from a well-known spiritual leader in the Middle East who had shared his thoughts on X's words. The leader spoke passionately about how X's message had given hope to millions of people in his country, where many were struggling with poverty and uncertainty. The leader, in his video, urged his followers to join the movement and spread the message of light and kindness, regardless of religion or background. "This is bigger than we thought," Grimes had written. "Here it's crossing cultural and religious boundaries. People everywhere are finding something meaningful in X's words." Elon watched the video, moved by the sincerity of the leader's words. It was clear to him that what they had started was far more than a trend. It was something deep, something people needed, and it was spreading faster than anyone could have predicted. Later that evening, as Elon sat down to dinner with X, he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. He had seen the spark of light in people's eyes, but now he was beginning to feel it himself. This wasn't just about the foundation, it was about something that had the potential to change the world. The light within was becoming a force of its own, something that could transcend all the doubts and criticisms. "Daddy, are we helping more people today?" X asked, his voice filled with innocence. Elon smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Yes, son, we are." X beamed, then paused, his brow furrowing as if he was deep in thought. "I think more people need to hear about Jesus," he said, his voice soft but firm. Elon's heart skipped a beat. The simplicity of X's words was striking, especially considering that they were coming from a child who hadn't yet begun to fully understand the intricacies of religion or faith. But in that moment, Elon realized that X's words weren't just about religion. They were about a universal truth. Love, kindness, and compassion weren't confined to any one faith or belief system. They were values that transcended boundaries and connected people on a deeper level. "Maybe they do," Elon replied, his voice thoughtful, "but we'll make sure that everyone hears the message of love and light, no matter where they come from or what they believe." As the weeks passed, the movement continued to grow, but so did the pressure. Elon began to feel the strain more acutely. There were late-night meetings, long phone calls with world leaders, and constant demands for his attention. His role as the face of the Light Within Foundation was becoming more challenging than he had ever imagined. One afternoon, as Elon sat in his office, a knock came at the door. It was his assistant, holding a folder filled with documents. "Elon," she said, "I have the latest reports on the Foundation's financials, and there are some concerns we need to address." Elon glanced at the folder, then set it aside for a moment. "Can we do this later?" he asked. "I need to focus on something else right now." His assistant hesitated but nodded. "Of course, but we really need to look at these numbers soon." Elon nodded, knowing that the financial health of the Foundation was crucial to its success. But at that moment, his mind was elsewhere. It was hard to focus on logistics when he was feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. The world was watching, waiting for him to provide answers, to give them something real, something tangible. That night, after a long day, Elon found himself sitting alone on the balcony of his home, staring up at the stars. The weight of the Foundation's success, the challenges ahead, and the ever-growing pressure to succeed felt overwhelming. But then he remembered X's words, spoken so simply, but with such conviction. "We're helping people." Elon closed, his eyes taking a deep breath. He didn't have all the answers. He didn't know exactly where the journey would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: the light they were sharing had the power to change the world. And that was enough to keep going. As he stood up to head inside, he smiled, thinking of X. They were doing something special, something that had the potential to touch lives in a way nothing else ever could, and no matter how hard it got, Elon knew they couldn't stop now. As the months went by, the world continued to watch closely. The Light Within Foundation was no longer just a movement. It was a phenomenon. Yet, with every new step forward, came new questions. What did it truly mean to share the light? Could people around the world really transform their lives with such a simple message of kindness and love? The pressure on Elon and on X was intensifying. Elon was accustomed to being under pressure. After all, his career in technology and space exploration had always been fraught with challenges. But this was different. This wasn't about building rockets or electric cars. This was about something far more profound, a movement that transcended industries, politics, and borders. This was about faith, about belief in a message that had the potential to reshape humanity's values. It was a rainy evening when Elon received a call that would change the trajectory of the movement. The call came from a famous televangelist, one of the most influential figures in the Christian world. He had watched X's appearance on television months ago, where the young child spoke so candidly about Jesus. Since then, the televangelist had been following the Foundation closely and was eager to meet with Elon. "Mr. Musk, I've seen the impact your son's words have had on people," the televangelist said, his voice warm yet firm. "I believe this movement is divinely inspired. But I have a question. Are you truly ready to embrace the message of Jesus in its full depth? Elon was taken aback by the question. It wasn't the first time someone had connected X's message to Jesus, but the way this televangelist had phrased it felt like a direct challenge. He had always understood that the core of X's message was rooted in universal principles of love and kindness, but now he wondered if he was ready to confront the deeper spiritual questions that this movement was inevitably stirring. Are we ready? Elon repeated, his voice contemplative. I think so, but I don't know if I fully understand what you mean. I mean that this isn't just about spreading light. This is about the truth of Jesus. Are you ready to publicly align this movement with Christ, to say that the core of what you're doing is rooted in Christian faith? Elon paused. He had never been one to shy away from big questions. But this one felt particularly significant. He had always tried to keep the Light Within Foundation inclusive, open to all faiths, all people, and all walks of life. The foundation had been built on the idea that love transcended religious divides. But the televangelist was asking him to take a step further, to identify the foundation with a specific religious message. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Elon said slowly. I think the message we're sharing is about the light that exists within all of us, regardless of religion. It's about finding common ground. The televangelist's tone softened. I understand, Mr. Musk, but know this. True transformation, true healing comes from acknowledging the source of that light. I'm not saying this has to be a religious movement per se, but the truth of Jesus is the ultimate light. You can't separate the light from its source. The conversation continued for a while longer, but as it ended, Elon was left with a profound sense of conflict. On the one hand, he deeply respected the televangelist's perspective and the power of Jesus' teachings. On the other hand, he didn't want to alienate anyone or impose one particular religious belief on the movement that had at its core always been about universal love and kindness. That night, Elon couldn't sleep. He thought about the televangelist's words and reflected on the message X had shared so innocently, but so profoundly on television. X had simply spoken about love, kindness, and the importance of believing in something greater than oneself. And yet, those simple words had touched millions of people across different backgrounds, faiths, and cultures. Elon found himself in the middle of a dilemma. On one side, there was the desire to be true to the inclusive nature of the light within, foundation, to make it accessible to all no matter their religion. On the other hand, there was the undeniable power of the message that X had shared. It felt like the foundation was tapping into something divine, something deeper than just human kindness. The next morning, after a restless night, Elon sat down with X in their living room. The sun had just risen, and the morning light filled the room with a soft glow. X was playing with his toys, as he always did in the morning, his tiny hands moving quickly as he built little structures. Elon watched him for a moment before speaking. X, Elon said, his voice gentle, what you said about Jesus, do you really understand what that means? X looked up from his toys, his face serious for a moment. I think I do, Daddy. Jesus is the one who told everyone to be kind. He told people to love each other. Elon smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. It was simple, but X's understanding was pure and profound. He wasn't getting bogged down in theology or the complexities of faith. He was understanding the heart of the message, love, kindness, and compassion. Do you think it's important that people know about Jesus? Elon asked, watching his son closely. X nodded. Yes, Daddy. Because if we all love each other, we'll all be happy. Elon's heart softened. In that moment, it became clear to him that X had touched on something fundamental. The message was about love and light, but it was also about the source of that love, the teachings of Jesus. Whether or not he fully understood the religious implications, X's words were a reflection of something universal and divine. I think you're right, son, Elon said quietly. We will share the light, and we will tell people about the love that Jesus taught. But we'll also make sure everyone knows that this is a message for everyone, no matter their faith. X grinned and nodded. We'll make everyone shine. Daddy. Elon felt a sense of calm settle over him. The movement had always been about spreading light and love, and it would continue to be. But now he understood that embracing the divine source of that light, whether through Jesus or through the shared values of humanity, was a part of the journey, and he was ready to lead that journey with X by his side. The challenge of faith was not about choosing sides or narrowing the movement's focus. It was about embracing the truth of love that transcended all boundaries, a truth that could unite people from all walks of life. And in that truth, Elon knew they would continue to find the strength to spread the light. The day had finally arrived. The Light Within Foundation was hosting its largest public event to date, a global gathering that would be broadcast to millions of viewers. The venue was packed with people from all over the world, spiritual leaders, philanthropists, families, and even people who had only recently heard about the movement. They had come not just to witness an event, but to be part of something greater, to feel the collective power of love, light and kindness that had spread like wildfire since that unforgettable moment on live TV, when a 5-year-old boy named X had spoken about Jesus in a way that touched the hearts of millions. Elon stood backstage, feeling a familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. His mind wandered back to everything that had led to this moment. From the first shocking words that X had spoken on live TV, to the doubts, to the support, and then to the increasingly powerful impact they were seeing around the world. The foundation had come so far, but now, standing at the precipice of something much bigger, Elon couldn't help but wonder, what next? What was the future of the Light Within Foundation, and how would it continue to evolve? He glanced at X, who was sitting on a chair playing with a small toy car. His innocence was like a beacon, grounding Elon in the knowledge that this entire movement was built on pure, simple intentions. X's words were the key, words that carried such weight despite being uttered by a child, words about kindness, love, and the importance of believing in something greater than oneself. That had always been the message. Elon, Grimes said, approaching him with a soft smile. We're ready when you are. Elon nodded, his thoughts clearing. Let's do it. As the lights in the venue dimmed, the audience fell silent in anticipation. The large screen above the stage flickered to life, showing an image of the Earth from space with beams of light radiating outward. The camera zoomed in, and there, standing at the center of the stage, was X. The crowd erupted into applause, but X simply smiled, raising his hand in a peaceful greeting. Elon joined him on stage, standing just behind his son. He was still processing the enormity of the moment, but he felt a sense of calm settle over him as he looked at the audience, all waiting to hear the message. The world was listening. This was no longer just a family's journey. It had become a global movement. Thank you all for being here today, Elon began, his voice steady and clear. When we first began this journey, it was born out of a simple desire, to spread light and love and to remind people of the beauty that exists in all of us. What started with a few words from my son has grown into something far greater than I ever imagined. He paused, glancing down at X, who was looking up at him with wide, trusting eyes. But none of this would be possible without the love and kindness that each of you bring to the world. Together, we are creating something extraordinary. And together, we are sharing the message that no matter where we come from, no matter our faith, we all have the light of love within us. The audience was quiet, hanging on every word. Elon could feel the weight of the moment, the significance of what they were doing. And now I'd like to invite my son X to share the words that started it all. X took a deep breath and stepped forward, his small frame radiating confidence. He looked out at the audience and then up at his father. His voice was soft but strong as he began speaking. Hi everyone, X said, his words carrying a quiet yet undeniable power. I'm X, and I want to tell you something. A long time ago there was a man named Jesus. He told people to love each other and to be kind. And I think that's the most important thing ever. Because if we all love each other, we can all be happy. The room fell silent, as if every person present was feeling the weight of X's words. It was as if the entire world paused, taking in the simplicity and purity of his message. Here was a child, no more than 5 or 6 years old, speaking of love in a way that transcended the complexities of religion, politics, and division. "You know, Jesus is the reason we can love," X continued, his eyes bright with innocence and certainty. "He showed us how, so we should always remember to be kind and to help each other." The audience erupted into applause, many moved to tears by the purity of X's message. Elon stood silently behind his son, his heart swelling with pride. X had no idea just how profound his words were. To him it was just a simple truth, a truth that seemed so clear and pure that even the most complicated debates about religion or faith couldn't obscure it. As the applause died down, X turned to Elon, his small hand reaching up for his father's. Elon knelt down, placing his hand on X's shoulder, his voice filled with emotion. "You're right, son," Elon said quietly, so only X could hear. "We will keep sharing the light, and we will keep spreading the message of love, and we'll make sure that everyone knows they are a part of it." X smiled, his eyes shining with a wisdom far beyond his years. "We'll make everyone shine, Daddy." The crowd stood, applauding louder than ever, as Elon and X stood together on stage, hand in hand. It wasn't just the end of the event. It felt like the beginning of something even bigger. A new chapter, not only for the Light Within Foundation, but for the world itself. The message had been shared, the light had been ignited, and it was spreading. As Elon and X left the stage, the weight of the world's expectations still hung in the air, but there was a sense of peace within Elon. He knew that they had done the right thing. They had embraced the light, embraced the message, and most importantly, embraced the simple truth that love, kindness, and faith were the ultimate sources of strength. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward even when things get tough?